The Beverly Zymet Show. Discovering you. Rewiring the brain. Rebuilding confidence. And harmonizing with nature. With over 4 decades of changing lives, your self-discovery archaeologist, get ready to be the best of you with your host, Beverly Zymet.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Beverly Zymet Show, where being the best you has just gotten easier. My guest today is Peggy Niles, and she's calling in from Illinois. Welcome to the show, Peggy.
Nice to talk to you this morning.
I know. Morning, afternoon, evening, wherever it is, on what side of the world you're on, because you know what? We cover the world here. So it's great to have you here today, and we're going to talk about a lot of fun things. Are you ready to have a good time?
I sure am.
Okay, because on this show, we have a good time or you go home.
I love it.
All right, so what does Miss Peggy do out there in Illinois?
I am a performance and profit strategist working with small business owners, and we help them, we basically guide them through scaling their companies by maximizing their performance and profits. And like you, I want to make sure everybody's having fun and being the best they can be.
Ah, music to my ears.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of times people are afraid to talk about money, in business, but that's relevant. You started this business and you're in it for the money, and
Right.
we're in this spiritual avenue, and it's like, okay, I can't talk about money because that means I'm going to be greedy or whatever, and it's like these crazy messed up thoughts that go around in the head, right? But
Yeah.
it's like, wait a minute, we have this beautiful asset that can change the lives of so many,
Mm-hmm.
right? And because we do live in a monetary world, that if you don't monetize things, if that bank account is blank, how are you going to spread that word like you want to spread it,
Right.
right?
Exactly.
How are you going to impact people's lives? In reward, it's an exchange of energy. Money is just energy. It's not a possession. So when you can allow money to be an asset for you, and you're in charge of it, and you don't turn that power over to the money, right? Because money can take on a life of its own, and it can alter sometimes how we perceive it and what we do with it and all that kind of things, right? But the understanding of it, it is an energy, and your information needs to be exchanged for that energy source. And that's what keeps the economy going. That's what keeps the growth going. And that personal growth, that inner growth of what goes on in here, has to have an exchange of. You need to put a value not only on what your abilities are and what your assets are, but to be able to share that, because people are going to take you serious when they pay for it. When it's like the old saying, if you have skin in the game, they're going to pay attention.
Yeah.
If you just give it away, now they're feeling guilty because they didn't pay for it, so therefore it's not going to work. And they kind of like disappear out of your life because they feel guilty that, oh my gosh, changed me so much, I should have paid them, all again, more crazy chatter, right?
I think it's a little fair, don't you?
In a lot of cases it is. It is.
It brings, I think it brings people to compare each other to,
Oh my
compare
gosh.
to the other people. And that's why I think they're kind of afraid to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I always like to go back to when my kids played hockey, I was sitting in a um, I'll call it a waiting room, the general area before they went into play. And I was tying my one son's skate. And one dad came in and he says to the other dad, "Hey, I've got a deal for you. You're
Okay.
gonna love it." And I sat there going, oh my God, now why don't more people talk like that? You know, if you
Right.
get to know people and you know what their interests are and what they like to invest in, the opportunity is endless, right? But I
It
think
is. It
a lot of
is.
people are afraid of it.
Uh-huh. And again, I think that fear also goes back into that change,
Hmm.
right? Oh gosh, I'm going to have to shift. I'm going to have to do something different. And change is scary for the majority of people. Well, I mean, oh my goodness, look what 2020 did.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, you talk about upside down, inside out, and everything else, right? How are you dealing with this? What's going on? How are you manipulating and how are you utilizing this massive change? It didn't just happen to you and your neighbor next door or your little town, right? Or your big city. It happened to the world,
Right.
right? So you got this massive change that either you go with it or you don't, because change is going to happen no matter how strong or how big or how small. Change is always constant,
Mm.
right? And so where are you going to move in the flow with?
Right.
And so and I've heard that, it's like, oh, such a deal I have for you. And again, it's that selling point. You can trigger different, more brain chatter up here, right? It's like, oh God, now what are you trying to sell me, right? So again, it's like, oh, you mean I have to let go of the money that I have? You want my money, and so again, it's all run on autopilot, unconscious. What is our database? What have we been programmed over the years on that belief of money, right?
And don't you think that so you mentioned about change,
Mm-hmm.
and change is constant. I think there are a lot of people that really grew and pivoted very easily and became successful in 2020.
Right.
I think there's a difference, on a regular day-to-day basis, a normal year, everyone kind of experiences their own change, right?
Right.
Their own obstacles that they have to climb over. So it's easier for them to hide from them if they want or need to, or find their own way around it. But
Right.
in 2020, literally everyone in the world was experiencing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe it was easier for everyone to adapt because of everyone else going through it.
And
And it was
and
hard. It was
that makes
definitely harder
sense.
to hide, right?
Right.
So,
Right. Well,
uh,
we were forced to make a change. I mean, it wasn't a subtle change, this little step to this little step to that little step, right? It was like, bam, and again, I think the survival kicks in. So it doesn't, fear, you know, couldn't get its way in because survival was there so strong that says, well, if you're going to survive this, you better figure out another way to do this thing. And it's like, oh yeah, and so you're out there researching. And again, when you look at, the connections and with businesses, I know here in Denver, my son runs a telecommunications business, right? And so they install phone services, to all these different businesses. They were so over inundated because now everybody had to be at home, not in the office. And it's like, oh my gosh, we need to get this system, in their homes. How do we do this? And so they were just massively hit with that.
yeah.
And to do that. But again, when you look at what's transpired out of that, well, hey, the pollution rate's down. Glory, hallelujah on that one, right? So, so was this part of nature's way of saying, hey, you know what, you're not cleaning me up. I'm going to force you to clean me up, right? So,
Yeah, you gotta wonder.
you got pros and cons on every side of the fence. So it's being grateful and really recognizing what those cons are and what the pros are, not the cons, right? And just start focusing on how do I make myself better in this chaotic world? Because we're in chaos. It's just brought everybody to a halt, Because I think this is my perception that I'm thinking like 60%, 70% of the world population is saying I need to make a change, but I don't know how to do it. I'm not sure. and gosh, I don't want to rock the boat. I hate what I'm doing here. I don't like the job I'm in, but the paycheck at the end of the week is pretty darn good. So you got all of these questions, right?
Yeah.
And it all goes back into that money system thing and that change, right? Yeah. And it's like, well, what would I do? So you continue making yourself busy being busy. You convince yourself that this is where you need to be because that's the focus. This is your survival. And then 2020 says, let's see what we can do to make people actually create in their own self, right? Yeah. So a lot of entrepreneur businesses, a lot of new businesses are opening up because the old way of doing things is it's not there anymore, right?
Right.
And it's how do I thrive? What can I do?
You really have to be more creative nowadays, right?
Right.
My thing is whenever that entrepreneurial spirit already creates some kind of havoc inside for people because
right.
if they grow in some way, either personally or professionally, hopefully both, they're afraid of what they're going to leave behind.
Oh, right.
Oh, their friends.
Right.
As it is, entrepreneurs sometimes have trouble getting support from family and friends, right? Because different mindset. So people don't understand that. And you kind of get forced into this limited belief rather than this growth mindset.
Yeah.
And if you change just a little, I mean, think about it this way. Instead of leaving someone behind, what if you were making such an impact and increasing your bottom line that you could bring them along with you instead?
Exactly.
So it's more how you think about it rather than just staying in your narrow tunnel. Kind of expand a little and ask the what if questions instead.
Yeah, I love that because we use the what if all the time, because again, that creativity, a lot of times we lose that creativity because of just, the things that have gone on in life, and people don't know how to dream anymore. They're not quite sure how to create a destiny, outcome, what are my goals, that type of thing. So that creativity, so you bring the pretend world back, which is the what if. Hey, just what if, right? And things start to look differently. And we talked a little bit about virtual reality before we get on the show here. The virtual reality actually brings the what if world right onto your computer screen. You actually immerse yourself into the what ifs. And now you're visually seeing it because we are a visual, being, right? I mean, so you look around the world, outside of yourself, everything is an illusion, right? So is virtual reality the real reality, or is it just another dimension of illusion, right? So you start looking at that.
Exactly. But then you start thinking, there are a lot of people out there that they see that and they think, oh yeah, that's great for them, but I could never do that.
Right.
And like you were talking about the avatars, and that's kind of a good way to look at it and why you should create the avatar for yourself, right?
Right, and that actually frees you up. And it gives you an opportunity to actually be an expression of just who you are.
Right.
You can put the real you that nobody knows into that avatar. And it's quite interesting when you look at the psychological aspect of what really happens in virtual reality. What happens in the movies, right? Yeah. Now, whether it's a human, movie or if it's an animated movie, you immerse yourself into that because you kind of take on the storyline of someone in that movie because it relates to who you are and different events in your life. So you find yourself crying or laughing or getting scared or whatever that case may be.
Yeah.
That's immersion, and that's what makes a good show. So on the virtual reality, now this is your creation. This is like your movie that you've created. This is your story coming alive in here. So you can actually take the spirit essence of the truth of who you are, your identity, and I work a lot in helping people find their identity and moving into the virtual reality platform because it's safe. It's safe, right? So everybody is equal on that platform, right? And now you're running around with all these other little avatars. You can just be you.
Yeah.
You can,
But even more so, you can be more than you. You can be the
yeah,
you you want to be.
yes,
Eventually, the more you're in that avatar, the more you're building your confidence. And when you're out in other situations, you kind of automatically become that person.
you do. And thank you for sharing that because that is a key element of the virtual reality world, to building confidence. They say, okay, stage presence is what? People would rather die than get on stage and tell their story, right? So what we do, we have stages on the platform, and confidence is built, as you mentioned, right? So we can put you on an international stage because we're international, right? So automatically you immerse yourself onto there, you become an international speaker like that, right?
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And so you're up there in that avatar form, you are giving the talk of your life. And I've watched it happen to people who are like, introvert, and they just like, I can do this. But they get on that stage in the virtual reality, and I'm sitting back, and I'm a people watcher, and I'm listening to what they're saying, and your eyes are just glued to that person on that stage because you are immersed in their story,
Yeah.
and it's so powerful. And to be able to have that impact, and the more you speak on these stages in here, that confidence level does rise. And so when you do go out into the other world, all of a sudden those fears are gone, because how that happens is we move into the alpha state, which is like a little meditative state. You're not in the beta consciousness of all the static, in life. So now you're kind of in a meditative type of state. The longer you're immersed in there, you can actually reach those theta states if you do go into some of the worlds where there's meditation going on, and the ambiances sit there, the music is on, and you can actually just do an open eye meditation. You will reach those levels of high alpha and theta like that fast. And that's why the mental health institutions are having the results that they're having, because they understand the workings of the mind, not the brain, because it's the mind that feeds the brain. And the brain is what's actually looking at that avatar, and it doesn't say, oh, well, that's not a human avatar. Oh, yes, it is. Because it's walking and talking and dressing just like that one that I see out here in this illusionary world on the earth, right? So the brain actually accepts it. As soon as you go in there, it accepts it, right? And you begin to feel, the more often you go in, it changes your perspective on things. It doesn't take you out of reality. It actually combines and makes your reality world a more fearless world.
And it's more expansive,
Oh
right?
my gosh, it's unlimited. It
Yeah.
brings back your creativity. It brings back the dreams. It changes people's lives so
And
fast.
then and then it boosts up your performance,
Exactly.
increasing your impact. I mean, it's just a snowball effect.
Exactly. Yeah.
The problem is, like, a lot of entrepreneurs, they leave their jobs, their 9 to 5s, because they want the freedom, right?
Right.
And instead, it becomes like a 9 to 5 plus more responsibility, less money, because you're paying, your own company bills and employees and everything.
Right.
And you got to find that way around, figure out where you want to go, but you're so in tune with that daily grind
Uh-huh.
that also limits what your avatar can do
Right.
if you stay in your own little world. You gotta be able to step back and really envision where you want to go.
Right.
That's what I like to do. If you can just, you know, figure out your plan to get out of the daily grind, that's how you're going to gain your freedom.
Oh yeah, much more than just saying, "Oh, I have my own business, so now I'm free to do and whatever I want."
Right.
It takes a little more than that, right? But
Yeah,
in
but as long as you use that excuse that you don't have the time, you're
exactly.
not going to be able to, and that's why, like, honestly, my vision is to help thousands of, of people, business owners, live their dream lifestyles through their business.
Right.
It's not to be stuck in that daily grind. It's to find your avatar and to expand on your what ifs so that you can reach that ultimate lifestyle, right? Who doesn't
Exactly.
want that?
Yeah, who doesn't want that? Comment below here. Tell us, do you want it or not want it? If you want it, say, yes, I want it, right? Because
During
this
that
is,
daily grind, forget it.
you know,
You're not going to be the best you can be. You're going to get burnt out and
right.
you're going to be overwhelmed.
Exactly. And that spirals you into an endless abyss, right? And so what we're looking to do here with this show and with the beautiful speakers, like Peggy here, giving, a little more direction on how you can really, successfully move forward in your dream. Because everyone has that entrepreneurial spirit. So you look at where we were back in the day, shall we say, right? And everybody had their own businesses. Hey, I got chickens and you got a cow. Okay, I need milk, you need eggs. It's that bartering system, right?
Yeah.
And now our bartering system just includes that monetary thing that everybody doesn't want to talk about, right? But again, it's where are your profits and where do you grow? And how do you really become the true essence of who you are?
Right.
And so whatever works for you, it's finding that identity, filling your cup, however you want to fill that cup, but really understanding what your assets are. And what I have found just especially in this year, being involved in that virtual reality world, it's like people find themselves so much faster because they're on a level playing ground. They're not running around in the beta fear state because it leaves and there's no static. So the whole mental game kind of goes away when you're in virtual reality. And a few months ago I had someone say to me, Beverly, you're in this virtual reality world, right? And yes, you can wear the Oculus glasses, which then kind of 3Ds it, but it's not necessary. And they said to me, what if, so here we go with the what if.
I love
What
it.
if someone would come to you and say, Beverly, take the glasses off and join the real world? It's like, okay, it kind of left me speechless, which was really unusual because that usually doesn't happen. Right? I've never been at a loss for words, but it's like, wow. So what if this illusionary world, this planet Earth world, is just another virtual reality existence and I take my glasses off, right? Wow. I mean, that was like,
Oh my God. Even in our daily lives, right? In
yeah.
our personal lives, in our business lives, how often we just go, follow along.
Right.
And
Right.
what if we just took the glasses off to see what's outside of our own little world?
Exactly, and I think there's dual messages in that, like you just shared. It's like sometimes we go blind because it's predictable.
Hmm.
Well, there's no predictability in the world today. That
Right.
whole that whole predictability world, that knowing world, that common denominator, that misery world was predictable, and so therefore you stay in it, and again it keeps us in that comfort zone.
Right.
There is no comfort zone today. There is no predictability today because we don't know from one day to the next.
Hmm.
What are they going to hand us and say? You got to do this. It's like, oh. Now I
Yeah.
don't know what's going on out there in Illinois and the Chicago and the suburbs and stuff, but I know here in Denver what they're saying. But I hear from friends and stuff because I haven't owned a TV in 30 years, so I don't watch that stuff. But
You're not
there's
missing anything.
yeah, I know. That's why it's like, okay, whatever. I'm in my own little world here, be it virtual or not. But again, it's that moving forward. I and again, when you look at what's your purpose for being here. So what if you really understood what your purpose was here? And I feel in the depth of every cell that I'm in is my main purpose here is to help people to understand and discover the spirit essence of who they are, that true identity of the soul essence and their purpose for being on the planet to bring harmony and peace to this world. Now, if I'm listening to the news and I'm buying into all that stuff and all those fear factor, elements, would I be fulfilling my purpose? Oh, well, not so much.
No.
Did I get here overnight? No. Did I have some huge awakening calls? Yeah. I grew up as a rebel, and I've been on this planet for 71 years. So I kind of have a lot of experiences in different arenas. Being that rebel and always wanting to go against the system, right? And I found myself in a situation where I ended up pregnant. Sex one time pregnant. Are you kidding me? Well, it does happen, so, okay. And it was all around that little rebel me, right? And so, but I was 21 when I had my first child. My mom says, you don't have to get married. Well, don't tell me what I can't do, right? Voila.
I'll do the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, okay, so I put myself in that situation. But again, we have experiences to get us to, to really who we are. And so in 4 years, I had sex 2 more times. I had 3 kids. Now they're all under the age of 5. I came from a big family, second oldest of 11, and this isn't my world. I grew up in the Midwest in Iowa, right next door to you. And it's like, this isn't who I am. Strict Catholic, divorce was a sin. Oh my gosh, it was a big sin. Suicide was more acceptable than divorce, which is really sad.
Yeah, it's very sad.
And one night I went for a walk because I was so far away from what my dreams were and where I was supposed to be that I decided I was going to give God a piece of my mind because I had so much anger. That rebel stuff really puts in a lot of anger. And I fought all of my life. Everything for me was a battle. And I wanted to make my way in the world. And this wasn't the way it's supposed to be, Oh, you get married, you have kids, you raise them, and then you just live this, And so I went out, it's midnight, I start talking to whom I thought was God. Later on, I find out it was my higher self, but I tell you, I gave him a piece of my mind. It really gave him a piece of my mind. But releasing all of that anger to the point of exhaustion. Now, I've been very intuitive as a child, and that was part of my survival through all the events in my life. And I hear this voice saying, are you done? Yeah. I was too exhausted to express anything else. And then the voice says, well, who's going to take care of your kids if you're not here? Oh my gosh, you talk about a reality slap. And then the person I was the angriest most with was my father, right? And so whose voice do I hear? I hear my dad's voice say, if you're going to have these kids, you're going to have to take care of them. And now here's God telling me, who's going to take care of these kids because your dad just told you they're not going to because they have enough of their own, right? There's 11 of us. Are you kidding me? Right? And so it's like, fine, then let's make a deal. Yeah. And I made this list of these are the things I want. And God says, okay.
Yeah, and that's just it. Really you were following someone else's path. And that happens so much. This is so minute compared to the story you just told, but not too long ago I was in a fast food lane.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one that had two microphones where you could order your food. Okay. And the line was really long. And when I got closer, I noticed everyone was just following the car in front of them through one line. And the second one was totally open. I'm like, what is going on? So, of course, I went to the open lane, right? I bypassed 5 cars. It was a lot quicker. But we get into that frame where we're always following what we think it should be like, or what someone tells us to do, or the person in front of us. Okay. And I think, I always like to tell people when you're building a business, do it as if it's a strategic game.
Right.
It kind of goes along right with your virtual reality. If you treat it kind of as a game, you have more control. You give yourself more permission to do things you normally
Yeah,
wouldn't.
your choices are going to be different when you,
Right.
yeah.
And I really think that we can't get caught up, and especially nowadays, we're being told what we should do. And I
Oh
think
man,
you'll
and
see a
it's
lot of
almost like
rebel
a
like
mandatory thing, right? We're not just
that.
going to tell you, we're going to mandate it.
And I think you'll see a lot of rebels like yourself come
Yeah.
out.
Well, when and
At
again,
some point, people are going to get sick of following
the
along.
following the crowd, right? Because I mean, I've already seen some of that happening, right? And it will. There'll be a big explosion here in the United States and probably around the world where you're going to see a lot of that. People are going to just say, "I'm done. I'm over it," right? Because everybody busts out of jail at the same time. But again, it goes back into knowing your identity, and that's what it showed me was, who am I really? What is my true identity?
Yeah.
And so I started on my journey at that point at 24 saying, who am I? Because I was being referred to, and I'm sure a lot of the audience here can recognize that by association. Oh, yeah, you're so and so's mom, you're so and so's wife. Oh, yeah, you live in that house. Oh, yeah, you do this. So, but who am I? I didn't even
Mm.
have a name. But I'll tell you what really set the biggest fire under my butt was when somebody says, "Oh, yeah, you belong to."
Oh,
Oh my gosh, it's like, I belong to me. Who the hell am I? All right, and I really started going in. And so when people would say something, "Oh, yeah, you're so and so's mom," right? And it's like, no, my name is Beverly. I would seriously say that. And now
right.
we're talking farm country, USA, right? Right in the heart of farm country, Iowa. And they look at you like deer in the headlights, like, what? I say, I have a name. My name is Beverly. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yes, that child is my son or my
But
daughter,
it's
right?
funny, you kind of didn't think about it till someone made one statement to you.
Well, I did think about it, but not in the capacity that drove me even faster when belonging. And again, so we look at that. Who do you belong to? Who are you surrendering your power to? Whether it's a business, whether it's a person, whether it's an event, whether it's an emotion, right?
Yeah.
Who did you give ownership up to? Who did you give your power over to? Right?
But a lot of it, I think, is if people even start to ask those questions, they'll take the first answer that comes to mind.
Mm-hmm.
They'll look just at the top level. And you know what? If you really want to make a transformation for yourself, for your business,
Right.
you have to dive deeper.
Deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah.
And the deeper you can dive, the better. Like, okay, I'll give you an example. You were talking earlier about wealth and how people don't like to talk about money and everything.
Right.
And, numbers, financial numbers, operational numbers, people hate them. They're boring, right? They say they're boring. But if you really take a deep dive to see what those numbers are telling you, it can transform your business. And like you said, create the energy for you.
Exactly.
But people don't take the deep dive, not even to see where they themselves currently are, to compare where they want to be or where their business currently is
Mm-hmm.
and where they want it to be.
Right.
Not to mention why you or your business is where it is.
Right.
Because they
Right.
just take that top level, they accept the top level answer.
Right. Now it goes so much more deeper to
Right.
understand.
And that's why you're
Yeah.
going to keep experiencing the issue, right? Because you're trying to solve the wrong thing.
Right. It's like I always say, I tell my clients, it's like, you know what? Houston has an issue. What are you going to do about it? How are you going to get rid of that issue? Because underneath that issue, there's another one and another one and another
Right.
one, and business is the same thing. So here's your business, Houston, right? It's got an issue.
Yeah.
What's the underlying cause, right? So you start peeling away what the business isn't to find what you want the is of that business to be.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter where the issue is. There's always a current that it got to that point. And
Yeah.
it's so subtle. so subtle. It didn't just poof and there it was there.
Yeah.
Right? And so now it's removing those things that aren't serving the purpose. What's not building your business to the what ifs that you want? What's not that future outcome? So when I went on my journey to figure out who I am, to find my true identity, and that's why I became that identity revelation specialist, is to be able to help others find their journey, find and discover that essence of who they are so that they can be that real you. And you know what? Everything that I had on that mile-long list, it all came into fruition. Because why? I was focused, I was determined, and I was not going to let somebody tell me what to do, what to do and how to do it and where to do it, And so, again, I used that rebel me to drive me in a direction of progress, not in a direction of destruction.
Yeah.
And that's the key. So where are you driving your business? Is it making progress, or is it going into destruction? So when you look at 2020, all the mandatory things, all the lockdowns and everything that transpires, what it has done to your business, how are you going to shift that business into making it thrive versus making it dissolve? Right? And the food industry, I think, has probably been the greatest impact.
Yes.
Right?
Food and travel.
And travel. Yeah, and travel, that's right, because I'm stuck here, But I had to, I really had to look at that, because I was chomping at the bit after being here for like a couple months. I'm like, I should be doing something I'm not doing. Oh yeah, I'm supposed to be driving there. I'm supposed to be going over here. I'm supposed to, right? And it's like, okay, supposed to. All right. That's not an option right now. So I got to be grateful for where I am and why I'm here and how I can build, because I did start 2 new businesses. I started this show. I started the virtual reality. There's a lot of beginnings here. And it's like, if I were adventuring like I normally did, then these businesses wouldn't have my attention to advance in the level that they are. And so it's like, okay, now I'm grateful for being here, because like I said, I have to be grateful that I do have a roof over my head, and food in my belly, heat, because it's getting really cold here, right? And high-speed internet. I mean, oh my gosh, because right now, that's where my life lives, and that's where the majority of people's lives live, right? Technology. And so when you look at technology, again, how can you make technology work for you? And I had an awakening the other day, we were talking about technology, and it's like, whoa, when we look at technology over the last decade, because we were coming more into the smartphones and everything, right? And I found everything. Computers were in this little phone thing, right? You got something this big that your life is on. What's everybody doing? They have some type of technological thing here, whether it's a 2-year-old or whether you're 200. It doesn't matter. Everybody's doing this, da-da-da-da-da-da, right? Checking things out. You go to restaurants and people are all sitting around the table, not talking, but texting. And actually texting each other across the table, like, seriously? The first time I saw that, I'm like, oh my goodness. So you look at how technology created a segregation. Slowly segregated everybody apart because they're on their own little world on these equipments, but everybody was hustle and bustling next to each other, so you didn't feel alone, you didn't feel isolated. And then all of a sudden 2020 comes, bam, right? And now you find yourself in 4 little walls, separated, and that same technology that segregated you is now bringing you back together, is taking away. How do I get out of this separation? How do I get reconnected? And so we find the webinars, the Zooms, all these different platforms, hundreds of platforms showing up just like boom, boom, boom. And the ones that have been there are advancing because they can't handle it. I think they said like Zoom went from 20,000 people using it to 400,000 in a month or something like that. Right? Yeah. So that same segregation is what's bringing us back together. but we need to utilize it. Again, where is the power? Where are you giving your power up to, and where do you need to step in alignment and move into that advancement? And what you're talking about here in the financial things and how they can use it. So, what are some words of wisdom, Peggy, that you could share with the audience on how can they really thrive their business in this topsy-turvy world right now to advance? What are the key elements that they need to look at to say, hey, let's dive deeper, and if they want to, they can reach out to you. But what are some of those little tips that you can give them to at least wake up that awareness?
There's a couple things. I mean, one, you really want to get clarity on where you want to go, where you yourself is. You can't let someone tell you you want to earn this much money or
Right.
you want to sell your company. You have to decide. Every business owner is different. I don't care what industry you're in, the business owner is different.
Mm-hmm.
But your goal is different. So you need to get clarity on that. And you need to figure out where you currently are so that you can build a roadmap how to get there, okay? And then you have to, you know, the most under leveraged component of your business is your numbers because it has so much data there to help you make key decisions in your business, when to hire, how much to hire. People talk about growing their companies and all they think about is top line revenue, but how many companies out there, 9 digits, are losing money at
Oh,
the bottom?
right, right.
And that's when the energy you were talking about earlier gets sucked out. Because of course, if you're losing money bottom line, you're not going to have energy. You're going to be totally, you know. But yet that's what they focus on. So you
Right,
want to focus on the holistic of your business, right?
right.
But the other thing I think is people get locked into trending or industries. Say you have, we'll use a restaurant for example, or even some type of service business is probably even better. And they look to, if they want to consult with an expert, they always look to, I want to make sure they have expertise in my area.
Right.
Well, you know what? You know the idiosyncrasies of your service. So you don't necessarily want to get help from someone who has the experience in that industry. Because do you want to constantly look like your competitor? Or do you want to find a way to to grow above them, to be the accelerator,
Right.
to be the winner in the virtual game? And the only way you're going to be able to do that is to have your own vision, is to take the deep dive to find out the hows and the whys, not just be told, cut your expenses. Well, how, why, what's the best way? And then using that data to read or anticipate, I should say more, anticipate your customers' needs so that you can create that next offering. So your
Right.
competitors are following you rather than you following your competitors.
Right. Understand what that competitor is doing and why they're succeeding the way they are, and then incorporate the things that resonate with you, and then do what? Make what you do one step better.
Yeah,
And again, that's what the theory of of the show, being that best you. So how can you make that best business, right? By doing, you know giving more than what your competitor does. What can you do for your customer? Focus on your customer's needs, as you said, and fulfill them even better than what your competitors do, and
right.
stay getting better and better and better and better and better all the time. Don't just stop on one thing.
Yeah,
Continue advancing, right? If this is what I'm hearing you correctly say, is
yeah,
to understand what your competitor is doing, but don't just
yeah.
do what they do. Do it even better.
Yeah, and you have to know what data to look at and how to read that data to give you that
Right.
information ahead of time in making those decisions.
Yeah, it's not about cutting your prices. I think that's the first place, and really a misconception where people think, oh, well, if I do the same thing they do, but I do it for, $20 cheaper or $100 cheaper, right? Not so
Yeah, and
much.
you want to create the strategies that as you're growing your revenue, your expenses are not growing at the same pace.
Right.
That'll
Yeah.
expand your profit. But here's the key. You have to work on as a business owner, you have to work on taking the reliance off of you
Mm-hmm.
so that you can have more time to focus on those big ideas. And that's going to bring more energy and that's going to really bring the best out of you.
Right.
Because as long as you're in that day to day and everything's reliant on you, you're not going to be able to 10 times the value of your business. You're not going to be able to
Right.
position for a profitable exit. And you're not going to have fulfillment in your own being.
Well, when you devalue the price of what you do, you devalue, you know, yourself. You devalue, what's available. So you're gonna have to start cutting corners somewhere
Right.
because the funds aren't going to be there to function that business like the expert because you've cut corners, right? So yeah, maybe that competitions, uh, um, people will, their customers will say, oh hey, yeah, let me go check this out. Yeah, it's cheaper. I can save money here. They might jump over there,
Yeah.
and once they're there, they're realizing that, oh, now I know why it's cheaper. It's like, I'm going back here because this is comfortable. I know what to expect. I get it all the time. And it's like, now they even become stronger.
Hmm.
So if you are competitive in pricing, which is a good thing, but even if you go above their pricing because you are offering more, now you're putting more value on what you're doing. You're putting more out there in what you're offering, and you're coming through with it. The finances are going to be there for that because they're going to say, wow, okay, yeah, it's going to cost me a little bit more, but look what else I'm getting. I like this idea. They're going to want to go with you, but you've got to follow through. And I think this is where a lot of people, because they don't know those numbers like you're saying, that
Yeah.
they can't stay up with the demand because they don't have what they need in place. And so
Right.
that foundation, everything is built on a foundation. I mean, we can go back into the biblical things, right? What was one of the biggest prophecies in there? It says, right, are you building on a
Yeah.
rock or shallow ground? And every business needs to ask themselves that. Am I building on a solid foundation, or am I building on an earthquake
Yeah.
that continually shakes, right? And knowing that, because when you're on that foundation, then Peggy, like, people like you in the business that you're doing, you have a strong foundation for them to build on, and now you can help them really find the pieces and the bricks to put in and the mortar to put in between it to create that solid business that's going to give them that what if and that outcome and that goal, right?
Right. Exactly. And you want to know how to hire the right people for the right spots, um,
Right.
that are going to work toward that what if with you.
And that's that team effort, right?
Yeah.
And gosh, I mean, I've been in businesses, all my life. I've had my own business. I'm not one of those to work for somebody else, right? And there's a lot of us out there, and we all have that little piece in us. It's finding it. But when you're doing that, and to be able to, again, work through that level of what does that business take you to, and where's the next step, and having that foundation and that greater understanding, and know your numbers. And I mean, I was in the automotive industry through the 80s and had a very profitable business in a real short time in a man's world, okay? And so, but I built a relationship with my clients, with the body shop owners, right? And there were so many of them that they were unbelievable how they could take a banged up car and turn it back into something look like it better than coming off the
Uh,
assembly line. I was like, wow, that's creativity, but they knew nothing about business, but they wanted to have their own business and they opened it, and they're like not understanding the business aspects.
yeah,
But they came to me, and this is where my counseling ended up, so I really got good training in counseling during this. Because being the opposite sex, I'm working with how to save marriages and relationships and stuff, because they would come to me, tell my wife or my girlfriend, it's like, what's going on? But in their business, I mean, some of these guys, they had been dropped, they dropped out of school or whatever, or they just didn't maybe have that book smart, which really isn't street smart. And when you're in business, you need the street smart, not the book smart. But
right.
they would come to me and they'd ask me, I I don't know how to write a check. I
Mm,
don't I don't know how to do taxes. I don't know, it's like I don't know what to do here, right? And I would give them simple business things, right? It's like, hey, you want to make your business grow. This is the best way to do it. You know, let the paint store take care of the taxes. You don't need to have taxes. You don't need to charge tax on what you do, as long
yeah,
as you pay for the material, because you don't tax your services. You only tax the products that you use. So if you pay the taxes to all your parts and pieces that you're getting to create this, wrecked car into a fancy car again, right? Then that's off your plate. Don't
yeah,
carry that burden. You're not saving money. It's
right.
costing you more headache than it is to do your own taxes. Let
And
them take care of it.
you hit it on a good point, especially when you're coming from a 9 to 5 job.
Right.
You know your thing. You're good at your thing.
That's
It's
right.
the general business overview, the acumen that you don't really know.
Right.
And especially if you're coming from the corporate world, you've experienced most likely, you may have a legal department, financial department,
Right.
operations department, marketing, and never do any of them talk. And so when you go into your business, you kind of are framed that way. You know your thing. You don't care to even know about the rest until something
It,
happens.
that's
Oh
right.
my God, I better figure this out.
Yeah.
Uh, but you have to think of it more like your business is a puzzle, and you have to make sure all those pieces are connecting.
Exactly. Exactly. And there are simple ways to connect them, or there's complicated ways. And that's your choice again, right? So it's
Yeah,
knowing who do you want to do the heavy lifting,
yeah,
right? And so being able to explain, a simple business strategy, because now they can stay in their lane,
hmm,
right? And I mean, it's just a few steps. Here's how you can make this business grow by staying in the lane of what you do best. But again,
right,
you've got money's coming in, money's coming out, and why you pay your suppliers first before you put money in your bank. Because if you put money in your bank and you go out and have a good time, guess what? That door is going to get locked on you, because nobody's going to sell you material because you don't pay,
right.
and then your customers are going to go, your stressors, so it's common sense and it's street sense. And what I did find, it was interesting that a lot of these business owners that didn't maybe have the book smart, but they had the street smarts and they understood that technology. But it,
Yeah,
it really helped me moving. I learned so much being in that automotive industry, selling sandpaper to body shops, right? It was crazy. That has impacted every other business that I've gotten into, in the holistic medicine and teaching classes and writing books. All of it goes back into that foundation that was built in the 80s when I did that automotive business. It blows me away how many times it goes right back to that, right back to that, right back to that.
right.
Right? So you don't know where your lessons are going to come from. So
Yeah,
pay attention, because every chapter of your life is leading to that next chapter.
yeah. But you know what? You got to make sure that you're building a good foundation.
That's right.
Now,
That's
if you
right.
build a good foundation, then you're building for sustainable growth and you're building a resilient company.
Right.
Otherwise, you're going to be on that revenue roller coaster losing money.
Right. Yep, the highs and the lows, and that's not a comfortable place. So when you're working with your clients, obviously you discover whether they're on shallow ground or solid foundation.
Right?
Now, so if someone is on shallow ground, can you help deter that and put them on a solid foundation? Is that part of what you do as well?
Yeah, so I mean, typically I'll work with businesses that have been in business for at least 5 to 7 years. But we start out doing that deep dive to see, where their business really is and what the strengths and weaknesses are, what needs to be done immediately to gain that momentum to
Mm-hmm.
maybe get out, and we build that clarity of where the business owner wants to go, both
Right.
personally and professionally, and we'll build that roadmap how to get there. And even though it's a long term roadmap, then we break it down into chunks. So we're working on what they need to focus on at that particular time to take them to the next level. Because you have to realize too, you're always going to be, like you said, those building blocks, right? You're
Right.
not going to get to one point and then sit back and relax, because if you do that, you're going to become stagnant
Right.
and you're going to get stuck. And you can't just keep doing the same thing if you want to continue to grow and reach that ultimate vision. So I definitely, it doesn't matter where you are, what issues you're having in your business, we're helping to create the strategies with you based on what you ultimately want to get out of your business. And then we guide you through that. It's not oh, here, let's create this plan for you and let you just go do it.
Right.
If you want the help, we guide you through that and we work with you and your team, or we help you build the team to do that as you grow.
Amazing. So if people want to get a hold of you, how do they do that, Peggy?
So, the best thing to do, you can really, if you want to connect with me on Facebook, it's facebook.com/profit strategist. And I do have a special offering. It's just a free guide for any of your listeners that they can get. It's the prescription for a profitable company. And they can get that at quantumscalingstrategies.com/numbers. Again, it's quantumscalingstrategies.com/numbers. And it's your free guide to the prescription of a profitable company. But
Awesome.
definitely join me on Facebook. I would love to see any of your
Right.
listeners.
And you can comment below here and she can grab who you are as well or private message her. Her name is definitely going to be up here, and so you'll be able to find her and reach out. And especially now, you want to start that progress. And hey, we all got extra time on our hands, right? So let's build from the foundation and really make this world a harmony and peace and a joint effort, working together, really working together.
And
And
really building the life you want
that's
for
right.
yourself, right?
That's right. That's right. Wow, Peggy, we've like gone over the hour even, which is amazing. And when things flow like this, you just kind of like, oh, we definitely got to get you back and maybe talk a little bit more on that strategy thing, right? And get people's interest stirred up a little bit more and where they can really go. But reach out to Peggy if you are struggling in your business and you don't know how to find your numbers. You know, come to the expert. Let her help you find your numbers because numbers talk,
Yeah.
right? Numbers
And
talk.
it's really, your numbers, your team, and your processes. So we can help you with all those strategies.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here, Peggy.
It was my pleasure.
So it's time to go say what? Go be that best you that you can be because you know what? Peggy and I, we are going to be the best we that we can be. And we'll see you all on another show.